when a group of urban explorers stumbled upon this ancient building deep in the Carpathian Mountains. They had no idea that they were about to unlock a doorway to another dimension. The explorers had come across an abandoned monastery that had been deserted for over 100 years. But what they didn't know was that this place was more than just a relic of the past. It was a gateway to somewhere else, somewhere that was both terrifying and wonderful. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe if you haven't so that you won't miss any new videos. As they ventured deeper into the building, they came across a room that was completely untouched, as if the people who had lived there had just vanished into thin air. In the middle of the room was a stone archway that seemed to be pulsing with an otherworldly energy. According to a local legend, this was the doorway to nowhere, a portal to another dimension that had been sealed away by monks who had disappeared without a trace. One of the explorers couldn't resist the urge to step through the archway and instantly vanished. The others were left in total darkness, screaming his name as they tried to pull him back through the archway, to no avail. In a panic, they raced to the village to find someone who could help them, but everyone they met just shook their heads and whispered tales of the explorers who had come before them, those who had dared to enter the monastery and never returned. When they finally found someone who knew the way back to the monastery, it was too late. The archway had vanished and their friend was nowhere to be found. They were determined to get to the bottom of what had happened to him. As they approached the building, they could hear strange noises coming from within, whispers and screams that seemed to echo through the halls. As they ventured inside, they realized that the monastery wasn't just abandoned. It was alive, watching them with a million unseen eyes. The explorers soon realized that time moved differently inside the monastery. What felt like hours outside was only seconds inside. They could hear the faint echoes of the previous explorers still screaming for help, their voices echoing through the halls like a warning. As they made their way through the twisting corridors, they came across strange symbols carved into the walls, symbols that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. They didn't know it at the time, but these symbols were the key to everything, the language of the very dimension that the monastery had been sealed off from. Suddenly, the ground began to shake, and the explorers found themselves running for their lives from something ancient and evil that was trying to break free from its prison. They had accidentally triggered a dormant evil, something that had been sealed away for centuries, and now it was coming for them. As they ran through the halls, they could hear the sound of heavy footsteps and guttural growls behind them. Whatever it was that was chasing them was fast, too fast for a human, yet not quite right. They burst through a door at the end of the hall and found themselves in a vast chamber filled with strange devices and technology that seemed to be from another world. In the center of the room was a glowing orb that pulsed with an otherworldly light. The explorers knew instinctively that this was the source of the monastery's power, the gateway to the other dimension. But as they approached the orb, they were attacked by tendrils of darkness that reached out from the shadows and tried to pull them into the swirling vortex. The explorers fought back, though, and eventually managed to reach the orb. When they touched it, they were flooded with knowledge, the history of the monastery, and the dimension beyond. They learned that the monks had not vanished, but had instead chosen to stay in the other dimension, which was actually a pocket universe, cut off from our own. The monks had used the archway to travel back and forth, bringing back artifacts and knowledge that they had used to help the villagers. But something had gone wrong. Something had followed them back from the other dimension, something that had lain dormant for centuries until the explorers had unwittingly awakened it. With the help of the orb, the explorers were able to banish the creature back to the other dimension and seal the gateway once again. But not before one of them, let's call him John, was pulled through. The others could only watch in horror as John disappeared into the swirling vortex, knowing that he would be trapped in the other dimension forever. To make matters worse, the orb's connection to the other dimension was unstable, causing the entire monastery to start crumbling around them. As the building collapsed, the explorers were forced to flee, leaving John behind. They didn't know it at the time, but John was not alone in the other dimension. The creature that they had banished was still there, along with the monks who had become its servants. John had become the first of many sacrifices, and the creature was growing stronger thanks to the energy that he had given it. The explorers had only bought themselves some time, and the battle to save John and close the gateway to the other dimension had just begun. What will the explorers do now? Will they be able to rescue John and seal the gateway to the other dimension before it's too late? Or will they become trapped in the other dimension with John and the creature? Find out next time.